We're locked in. So return to sender, well, because it implies God, if you think about it, right? Like everything at the end of the day gets returned back to the earth or back to God. So it's really a statement about letting go and realizing that everything is momentary and nothing can really be held on to, because at the end of the day, it all gets turned back into dust.
Perfect. So, Patrick, why don't you tell everyone who you are and give them a little insight of what they're going to be in store for?
Well, my name is Patrick Hoyle, and I'm 41 years old, and I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic who spent the last 30 years trying to make drugs and alcohol work in my life, in the sense that like I could get high and still have a job or a relationship and have a family and just be like a productive member of society. And I'm here to report that I just absolutely could not hack it, and my life eventually imploded in on me, and I barely made it back into a program of recovery by the skin of my teeth. Like it came down to like inches and seconds. And so now I've been on this road for the last, coming up on a year, and life is much better, and it's just really, truly is the easier, softer way. And so now I'm just trying to find my voice, I guess, or my purpose. You know, I have all these experiences that I need to like transmute into something useful for someone else, and I'm kind of just figuring out on a daily basis how I can do that and how I can, try to give to others and make my life about being.
And one thing you showed me was you had your own documentary. Why don't you give us a rundown? Because this episode is going to be the introduction. We're partners in this podcast, and I want you to talk about your own documentary that you created over the past, maybe 2 years?
Sure. Well, it was basically, I was living up in Seattle, and I don't know if you've ever been to Seattle, but it's not the friendliest place. It's not a place you want to go to mend a broken heart, which is where I found myself. I got out of a relationship, and I moved to Seattle to kind of get my life back together. And there's something called the Seattle Freeze. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it means that like basically everyone walks around with a frozen face or a frozen heart. It's really hard to get a smile or a conversation out of a stranger. So I found myself in this, probably the loneliest city in the world, being the loneliest person, feeling like I was the loneliest person in that city. So I found that for some reason when I would like record myself, I felt like I had company. So I ended up buying like some nice camera equipment and just started documenting my my life up there. As boring as it was, it basically consisted of me driving around in my car, smoking fentanyl, shooting meth, being fucking weird, stealing ice cream, chasing prostitutes, drug addicts, schizophrenics, and like, so I just had all this footage when I came back down to LA to get sober, and a lot of it was really, heart-wrenching and sad and difficult to watch, because a lot of it is me nodding out, and there's like soot on my face from all the charcoal and the tinfoil, and there's like gummy bears stuck in my head, and I hadn't showered in a month. So I have all this really gnarly footage, and I just thought to myself, like, well, what can I do? What can I do with it? How can I make this useful? Or like, how can I compile this and present it in a way that maybe offers somebody else hope? Because there's so many people I met on the streets who were hopeless, alone, afraid, like selling their bodies for drugs or stealing. I mean, they just didn't see a way out. And a lot of them had phones and were watching YouTube. I just feel like there was a space in the social media world for something that's real, but also that can offer hope to people out there. So I'm still editing the footage and trying to present it in a way where it's not like self-promoting, but rather like just encapsulates my struggle and the fact that I did find a way out on that journey down to LA.
Yeah, and I saw most of your podcast, or a documentary.
Sure.
And I thought it was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Just going through, Seattle on a sick one, just spitting pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
And, I'm really glad to have you on here. And hopefully we're going to have, is it available to see online? Your documentary yet?
It's in the works. I got some final editing to do, and I want to do like a sort of a voiceover narrative of it, because right now it's just a lot of imagery, the things I was saying into the camera, and music. But it's I'm trying to tell a story basically, and I want to condense it in a way where it's short but sweet, like to the point. I don't want to just, because there's a lot of like getting high and nodding out, which is like good to show, because that's what your life consists of when you were getting high the way I was getting high. You're basically every waking moment you're hitting foils, or you're shooting, you're making shots, or so I wanted to like show that in an honest way, but at the same time not glamorize it.
Yeah. And I'm gonna give you guys a little introduction of myself. My name's Reza. I'm turning 34 in November, and I've lived a pretty cool life so far. I'm in recovery as well. I've known Patrick in recovery years ago. We used to catch each other at late night Marina Center, and we used to all hang out and shoot the shit, go to In-N-Out after, and it's just really dope to be back in sobriety years later and doing something as cool as a podcast. And I want you guys to know that this isn't going to be purely recovery based. We're going to have a few, recovery guests come through and discuss recovery, but we're going to like go over a lot of different facets, including, we're going to talk about music, dating, God, religion, growing up in LA, the Hollywood business, selling sneakers. I mean, the list goes on, and sooner or later we're going to even ask the audience what type of topic they want in terms of a guest. But Patrick, now I mentioned a couple things. Why don't you add on to what type of guest?
Well, I think that what we're trying to portray here is like a real-time coming-of-age story that we tell it as we live it. Basically, where we're at, it's a tough world to live in. Like we're living in a time that's been like no other in the past. We're bombarded with information, and there's a constant grab for our attention. Like where our attention is people are after it. And it's important to recognize the fact that we can choose what we give our attention to and what areas of our life we want to grow. Because if you're not, I find that if I'm not mindful of what I'm paying attention to or what I'm interested in, someone else will do it for me. And then I feel like I become a passenger in the vehicle of my own life. And I didn't have this realization until recently, to realize the power of attention and intention. So I don't know, I guess we'll just be sharing our interests, our lives, what we think is important, because there's a lot of pollution out there, I think. And I don't know if this is our way of like guiding, we can share what we find interesting with others, and maybe it will, like others do with me, maybe we just, pay it forward and pass it along like that,
Yeah.
That's my hope anyways.
No, and I'm really looking forward to this opportunity. I mean, right now, I feel like society's really in bad shape. And me and Patrick have been through a ton of shit. Like, we're grateful to fucking be alive. That's just the reality of it. We've lived lifetimes, and you're going to see us bring up our anecdotal stories along with the guests. This episode is purely just an introduction for me and Patrick to provide you guys what we have in store. And the podcast is called Return to Sender, and I currently have a little over 4 months. How much time do you have?
I'm coming up on a year.
Coming up on a year.
Yeah.
That's fucking amazing. How did you do it?
Well, I had a pretty radical transformative experience on my last day of using. It wasn't necessarily planning on it being my last day of using, but I had this experience that was so radical and transforming. I don't know if I'll get into it. It's kind of a long story. It's interesting, anyways. I share it a lot in meetings when I speak, just because it was like the catalyst of what got me on a spiritual path. And I think now it's just about walking that spiritual path one step at a time, and trying to keep an open mind and an open heart, and realizing that the only thing that really matters is the moment. Is like that's I find my recovery so when people ask me how much time I have, or they measure their recovery with time, I don't really identify that or place much importance on it. For me, it's about how am I in this moment right now? And then to take it a step further, I can realize that how I feel in this moment is ultimately a choice. And it's contingent, again, on what I give my attention to or how I choose to feel. But we can get into that a little bit more later. Let's keep it a little light and airy. That's when we go much deeper.
Yeah.
But let me ask you something. When you hear the word return to sender, what does that mean to you?
I mean, that's a good question. I feel like that title, it's a great title. You came up with the title, and we're going to run with it. When I think of Return to Sender, I just think about, pretty much giving raw opinions on life and circumstances and things that people could be dealing with. Because a lot of times, people are misguided. And we have a lot of years of experience. We've partied a lot. We've dated a lot. We've traveled a lot. We've been through a lot of shit. And I feel like there's people in the community that, haven't endured some of the stuff we've been through. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'm lucky to be alive. I've had 2 overdoses. I've gotten sober on and off many times. I had the most time I had was 5 years and 8 months. I've accomplished a lot. Went back to school, made a ton of money selling sneakers, partied a lot, hung out with celebrities, lost it all, got it back, lost it all. And this last time around, I didn't think that there was any hope. I was just depleted. I was defeated. I was hopeless. My mental health was really declining. And I just wanted to overdose. But for some apparent reason, every time I overdosed, I was around people. And there was many times where I smoked a lot of fentanyl by myself, and I should have been dead. But apparently God has a purpose, and Return to Sender could be us giving back what was truly given to us, and using our strength and hope and our experiences, and also having a good fucking time, because I have a great fucking time in sobriety, in life. I'm constantly laughing, and I couldn't believe staying sober if I wasn't having a good time. So I believe that we're here and there's a purpose, because there's a reason why we're not dead. And unfortunately, we've lost a lot of friends, possibly family members. And people always told me, in meetings, some of us die for some of us to live, or why are we still here? And why not bless the community and have a good time in the process, bring all sorts of cool guests, and do what we love. We love to talk. We like to
just
have
like
fun.
hanging out.
Yeah.
So hearing you tell your story, and in the context of Return to Sender, I'm reminded the cyclical nature of what that statement implies. So you said you had time before, you went back out, and then you're brought back again to the rooms for
and
recovery.
I didn't want to come back. I was fighting for dear life.
You were returned to sender, right?
Yeah,
AA is what initially gave you your life back the first time. You went back out, explored some things. Maybe some things worked, maybe most of them didn't, and you found yourself right back to square one. And that can be applied to anything, coming into this world. We kind of go out of it the same way we come in, alone and hopefully naked and wet. You know what I'm saying? If it's up to us. But I just think that it's kind of a name that I adopted a long time ago, and it's just been meaningful ever since I discovered. I think I looked on a returned postcard one day, and saw the Return to Sender with the hand, and it just it really stuck out to me. And I just think it also implies relationships. If you write a letter to someone and you mail it to them, and let's say they don't receive it, it still gets returned to sender. The hope is that when you write a letter to someone, they write it back to you. They respond, you get the letter back, and it gets returned to sender anyway. So basically, to me, it implies a give and take relationship, a balance between giving and taking.
And that's what we struggled with, right? When
Absolutely.
we were in our addiction, all we did was take. So let me ask you, how much better does it feel to give? To be in a different side of the spectrum?
Well,
being in a giving stance.
The way that I see it is I approach it with what I call a selfish altruism, right? So I get up every day, and the most important thing when I start my day is to get to a place mentally, physically, and spiritually of feeling good. I want to feel as good as I can, and that trumps everything else, because what it allows me to do is go out into the world and be more effective in the way I interact with people, with the way that I'm able to be helpful to people and to myself. And so as much as giving feels good, I have to initially take in order to get to a place of feeling good, and then so I'm able to give it away. And I find that it's just the results from that are much, much better. I hear a lot of people talk about saying that if you're having a shitty day, go out and help someone, and that's all good and well, but I just find that I'm able to help people in a much more profound and powerful way when I'm feeling good. And so the way I do that is typically through meditation, exercise, physical exercise, mental exercise. I read a lot of books, and it's about I write a lot, I journal a lot, I write a lot of inventory, and but yeah, to give feels really good. And it's not just about giving tangible things. The way I view giving is a transfer of energy, right? So sometimes it's your time, sometimes it's your attention, sometimes if you're good at stuff, you're able to lend physical things to people. That always feels good. But at the end of the day, as human beings, and specifically addicts, it's our only salvation is to our constant thought of others. As cliche as it sounds, it's said because it's true. But I still have my moments where I'm fuck this. I want what I want, and so it becomes a delicate balance between those two, because we still have to live and eat and provide for ourselves, but at the same time we do that so that we're able to share with others in an effective way.
Yeah, and we're very selfish people, just a FYI. Addicts and alcoholics are very selfish, and the irony is that when we're giving, I feel a lot better about myself. My confidence right now is up the roof. And it's less ego-based confidence. It's more just humble confidence. And this is going to be a great opportunity because, a lot of people have podcasts in terms of recovery-based or whatever. But we're going to talk about what makes our podcast a bit different. See, the good thing about our podcast is that we're going to bring a wide variety of topics that we're going to talk about, because there's so many different things going on in life. And luckily, through my years, I've made a lot of good connections, and we're going to have some really cool guests. Just a heads up, my older brother's been a big Hollywood promoter. He's been running Hollywood for the last 16, 15 years. And I've met a lot of cool people being around him and my own journeys. And we really want to cover a lot of topics that we don't see, because it seems like there's a lot of topics that people are stressing right now that we feel like we need. So we're going to really applaud our diversity. And Patrick, anything else?
That will definitely be your department, the interesting guest. I'm just going to try to focus on wearing a new interesting t-shirt every time. I set the bar pretty low for myself, so that way when I achieve it, I feel like I've accomplished something. But I will, I will try with due diligence to bring interesting people and topics.
Shirt.
Thank you.
Can you tell me about that shirt?
Yes. So I got I got this shirt. This is the first shirt I got from a company called Mountain T-Shirts, where they have a lot of animal prints and like squirrels.
Yeah, I noticed
and
you wear
horses.
different.
Yes.
One day it's a dinosaur, one day
Very
it's a grizzly
colorful
bear.
shirts. I find that it's just I try to align myself with my spirit animal of the day. So this is more of a native thing. I got this from a thrift store actually, and it
There's come ups at thrift stores.
they're the best. Are you kidding me? Like to buy, I have this idea, right? If we want to take back our power from the government and from corporations, if we all just pitched in and agreed for maybe one day or maybe a week, okay? We're not going to buy anything new from the store for a week. So whatever we're going to buy, we're going to get it secondhand. Craigslist, thrift stores, vintage shops, whatever. Do you understand the power that we would wield from that? Like if we just didn't buy anything, like, okay, buy the food you're going to need, but don't make not one purchase from a store to buy a new thing, car, food, gas, whatever. The power that we would get back from these corporations, like it would just level them. I don't know how else it would ripple out, but I just feel like we need to take our power back. And
you gave me an idea. We need to bring someone that's well versed in animals, and we can talk about cool animals, kind of like what Joe Rogan does when he talks about grizzly bears.
Yeah.
And,
If you could have one, what's your favorite? If you could have one animal, a guest come here with an animal, which animal would you think it would be?
I mean, that wouldn't be reasonable because my favorite animal would fucking devour us both.
A dragon?
A rhino.
Oh, okay.
And
There's no one has a pet rhino.
Yeah, so
Goals.
I'm gonna be more realistic. In terms of a pet, I would love to see like a pet wolf. You know, someone that's got a wolf domestic, or even a half-breed wolf.
Like a bear?
A bear would be great.
That's sketchy.
You know, maybe like a baby bear, but also like cool birds. You know, like a cool parrot that can like verse like
Shakespeare
prayers.
or something.
Yeah, or Shakespeare. Or
Sure.
like recite something really fucking cool. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think red pandas are pretty cool. They're a big hit with the ladies. So obviously that's going to influence my decision.
What about
somewhat.
that one panda? Was it like the sun panda that looked like a human? I don't know if you saw there was a panda
that was a Chinese algorithm,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was
like
real.
A guy in a panda suit.
And they kicked him, and it wasn't. It was just a panda, and that they're like, sorry. No, I didn't hear. You know, I'll just say this. So like, what you're gonna have to do is keep me up to date and current on whatever messages or memes are popular on social media. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll find myself trying to get back into that. But I made a decision 10 or 11 months ago when I came in to not watch television, to not use social media, to not watch porn, and to basically just be really mindful about what I consume. And I'll tell you one thing, one plus from especially the not porn thing, the stuff I keep in the vault, like in terms of having to go to the vault to exercise that spiritual essence that is in me, the vault, the imagery in the movies in the vault have gotten much more detailed and much more clarity, and the sounds and the sights and the smells have really been brought to life when I've removed that having to get that from porn. You know what I'm saying?
I was gonna ask
do you ever think about that at all? Like,
I mean, how do you not? Because the most I could go without porn, like, is probably like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Like, I've done semen retention. The max that I've counted was 30 days.
Without porn or without
Both.
just shooting the load?
Both. And I had a lot of energy, but I just don't know how you can go so long, because I read the Quran and, you know, I try not to watch porn. Because when you're reading the Quran, you're like praying to God. They kind of don't go hand in hand with porn.
I'll tell you what it is, though. There's something about jacking off after you've watched porn that, like, there's no more shameful feeling. Like when you look around and there's like the tissue and your pants are around your ankles and you have your phone out, you're just like, this is my most vulnerable, shameful. Like if someone wanted to like blackmail me, all they need to do is have a picture of me in this moment right now. But I understand that like everybody does it, so we're not alone.
Yeah.
But still, that like thought occurs to me every time. Like,
but it is
like
a huge problem in today's society. Like, since you brought that up, tell me about, like, in terms of these things, right? Porn, social media. Forgot what else you mentioned. What do you think is the worst
TV?
one? TV. What do you think is the worst
I don't know.
one?
I mean, also video games too. I don't think that anything that like can offer your brain any sort of artificial reward system through like this virtual experience. I just don't think our brains are equipped to. Maybe they'll evolve eventually, like to be able to process that and to integrate it in a way that's suitable or advantageous for our survival. But I think right now that's not the case, and we're exposing ourselves to this machine that is literally rewiring the circuitry in our brain. A lot of these younger people are being exposed to it, and I don't think we know the ramifications of it. Like, it's to be seen still because it's so new. But I can tell you one thing that I've discovered, like with not choosing to not pay attention to those things. Like, my thoughts now are much more rewarding. And like, I can just sit, like I have the ability to just sit in a chair and like stare at the fucking wall for like hours and just be like, and like not even know, like not want to be anywhere else. I mean, that comes with like practice, but like, I don't know how deep you believe in the power of thought, but I believe that like thoughts will dictate feelings, and your feelings are what ultimately construct the reality in which you live. So like I had this theory, and I read about it in other books, that I wanted to put that into practice, and I have in the last 11 months. And I can't tell you definitively that that's the case, but I can say that the results after implementing these practices have been worth exploring more and worth pursuing and worth continuing to do. Like the results have been fucking staggering, to be honest.
Yeah, and I noticed social media, TikTok, all these reels, I try to keep it to like a very short minimum. In the past, there's days I spent maybe like 2 hours just watching reels, and sure, some of it was informative, but after those 2 hours, I felt fucking miserable.
I've never once watched, I don't know, like I have my moments, like, so there was a few weeks ago, I heard about this big swell. I'm a surfer. I heard about this big swell, and I was like, I wanted to see some highlights of the waves. So I'm like, I'm going to watch one fucking surf video. And of course, this amazing video with like drone fucking underwater 3D hologram footage comes on. Like, the content people are putting out is fucking unbelievable. And I get the appeal. But I'm watching this thing, and then like I just blink. And all of a sudden, like, there's all these other videos, and then before I know it, I'm like watching like a rhinoceros pull a fucking rickshaw through like a coconut grove with like I mean, just like how I ended up there was so beyond. And I realized, like, oh my god, like 20 minutes have gone by, and I have no idea what I'm even paying attention to. And then this is what I find to be consistent. Every time I stopped looking at that shit, no matter what I was watching, even if it was like uplifting grandmother teaching crocheting lessons or like, underwater basket weaving tutorials, I always felt worse about my situation, like, or what I was doing with my life. It never, like, I never felt inspired, and maybe that's my own shit, my own shortcomings and not being able to like see the benefit or the positivity of that. But I just found it was consistent that every time I looked away from this stuff, social media, Instagram reels, TikTok, whatever, I always felt worse than before I started. Like,
yeah, and
100% of the time.
And I feel like a lot of this stuff is kind of dictating the future, right? It's like you see all these like people talking about dating and masculinity and feminism. It's getting bad, and there's like people like Andrew Tate, fucking Zerka. I mean, the list goes on where they're discussing these things, and I feel like, I don't know about you, but I feel like social media is contributing to this a lot, and people are kind of struggling, and that's what's selling right now. And we're going to discuss that too, but, I think it's very impressive that you're kind of putting a hold to this. You're like restraining yourself, you have discipline, because this causes, to me, a lot of the issues that people deal with today, especially the newer generation. And I want you to just kind of
I don't do it because like I want to impress anybody or get like a pat on the back, like, and I don't promote doing this to other people. I don't push like, I don't judge people for doing it. I just found that like I fucked my life up for like so consistently for so long. I wasted so much time, and I fucked up so many opportunities, squandered so many relationships, that I feel like now I've been given a second chance. Like, I can't fuck it up again, and I need to maximize every waking moment to try to like project or like so my life gets better. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I just don't have any more time to fuck around, and I feel sometimes I'm like really hard on myself in that sense because like I wasted so much time, but I can't cry over spilt milk. Like all I can do is identify what it is that I don't want in my life because of all the things I've done, and then I'm still discovering what it is I do want. And so for that requires like my 100% of my concentration and attention. So like I get it that people, find entertainment or relief or whatever it is in looking at this stuff, but like there's no qualifications, there's no oversight on who gets to be on the platform. So you get people like I understand Andrew Tate. Like I'm not even knocking Andrew Tate for any of the things he says or does. Like I get it. The guy's got a huge following, but I will kind of blame the people that are giving their attention to him because like he's going to keep saying more radical and extreme shit because he knows it gets more attention. Like the more radical he gets, the more attention he gets. And I think that like people need to recognize the power of their individual attention and that they can we could literally make Donald Trump go away if we just stopped paying attention to him. If we took his name and the images out of our vernacular and out of our everyday experience, he would fucking just disappear. But the fact that like he's saying all this controversial shit, he knows that that's what gets people like salivating and hungry for more, for all the fucked up things that we're waiting for him to say. And it's like, what is the result of that? Like we get this society now that's totally divided and complete. There's the the views are so polarizing, and like racism is like at an all-time high, and it's like here we are 165 whatever years away from slavery. It should be going the other way. We should be more unified and integrated, and like racism should be a thing of the past, and now it's like more prolific and more pronounced than ever. And it's like it's a result of like the things that they're showing us and the things that we're receiving or like voluntarily paying attention to. Yeah. So I think that like we need to realize that the power of our individual attention and intention, and to recognize that like what we pay attention to grows.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this podcast. Like you are really self-disciplined, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to have guests here, and we're going to slowly kind of go towards wrapping it up because this is our first segment. This is the Reza and Patrick show first segment, and just an FYI, we're going to be editing the videos. You're going to see the videos come sooner on a YouTube platform. We're going to create that. We're going to create a social media for the podcast, Return to Sender. And Patrick, I mean, this is a great time.
Yeah, I feel like we should go out on like a high note here, and I want to hear either a colorful war story from your past, and if you don't have one, then I can share one because I have because I just think it'll be like you know what I'm saying? Do you have one off the top of your head?
You know what? I'm gonna let you do this one. I'll do the next. We'll do the next one where both of us will end it, and I think that's gonna be moving forward. Kind of like we're gonna end with a bang like this.
Okay.
We'll switch it up too. By the way, this one's gonna be a war story. So yeah, Patrick, run it.
So I was living in Seattle. And I was living off of this street. If you're not familiar with it, it's called Aurora Avenue. And it's basically a 3-mile stretch where prostitution is essential. Like, everything is legal there. It's like literally they just took a town from like Old Dodge City, a street from Old Dodge City, and moved it into Seattle area. Like the police don't arrest anybody for anything. People are out there fighting, shooting each other. Selling ass, selling drugs, stealing. I mean, it is like it's like the Wild West. And I lived like 3 blocks from like where it began, and it was a stretch that ran for like, 4 miles. And basically the girls would walk the track. That's what they call it. They'd walk the track. They'd walk up and down, no matter what the weather, rain, sleet, snow, hail, pretty much half naked. There was hundreds of girls that would walk up and down this street, and people were getting high on bus stops or like just out in the open. people are out there yelling at cars and like, you know, fighting. I mean, it was just the most wild place I had ever seen in my life. And like the sick addict part of me, like that appeals to that part, that excitement, the unknown, like how shit can just kick off at any minute. Like, so I would find myself like, you know, spending the majority of my time either riding a bike up and down the street or driving up and down this street and just like meeting people, sort of interviewing people, how they, like I'd befriend people and then ask them like how they ended up there. And, you know, I'd share my drugs with them, whatever. Basically I was just really lonely and I wanted to make friends. And so the only way I knew how was basically to like offer drugs and like, you know, whatever. I wasn't into like paying, like prostitution. I don't know, not to knock anybody. It's just not my thing. Like I think it defeats the purpose of it. The reward is like in the sense that like this person actually wants to be with you. That's the part that I crave, not so much like just getting a nut off or whatever. So, I mean, that's just me. I'm not judging anyone who's into that. It seems like a very efficient way. But I will say what I found is that at the end of the day, whether you're paying directly for sex or not, when you're hanging out with a prostitute, it's going to cost you money. And it's probably going to cost you more money than it would be as if you just had a transactional relationship and just paid for the goodies right up front. You end up paying way, way more. Like if you're just trying to hang out with them, you got to like pay their phone bill, get their fucking hair done, buy them breakfast, get them high. It's like, you're like, dude, this is like a $20,000 fuck right here. Like, what am I doing here? When you could have just got it for $100. So anyways, there was this day where I was riding my bike and I saw these 3 girls smoking fentanyl on the bus stop, and they were like kind of dressed up. It was Saturday night or something. They were dressed up looking kind of sexy, and I'm like, that's my jam. Like, how do I if you just go up to them and start talking, they're gonna like yell at you or whatever, or like just tell you to fuck off. So I had to be strategic about it. I got on my bike and I saw them walking up this street, and I rode ahead of them, and then I sat at the bus stop acting like my tire was popped, and I was just sitting there like I needed help or something, and I'm smoking fentanyl, and they walk by and I waved to them or whatever, and like they didn't really pay me much mind, and I was like, okay, that was weird, because I was clearly going to offer something if they wanted it. And so they kept going, they didn't pay me much mind, and then I got back on my bike and I went up to this girl and I was asking her like, hey, can you I need some fentanyl, I got money, blah, blah, blah. And there was a lot of traffic, and I don't remember what she said, but she really wasn't having it. And because there was noise from the cars, I didn't hear that she wasn't having it. So I like raised my voice, and I'm like, you know, like it could have easily been interpreted as me getting like aggressive towards her. So, but I was being friendly. So she fucking pulls a gun out on me and starts pointing the gun, and she's like, you got a fucking problem, motherfucker? And I'm like, not nearly one big enough that I'm willing to die about it. Like, I'm sorry. And I rode off, and I'm sitting there thinking about it like, dude, actually, like that kind of, for some reason, it like turned me on.
Yeah.
You know, like the fact that this girl fucking punked me, or like, I don't know.
Happen to you very often.
Bully. Well, I mean, I'm pretty like soft when it comes to girls and stuff. Like, I'm very accommodating. I can be, you know, probably to my own fault. But at the end of the day, like, I just want to hang out and like have a good time, you know, like. So I'm sitting there thinking about it, and then the more I think about it, I'm like, she bullied me. Like, I wasn't a threat to her. The way I approached her, I had my back to her. I had both of my hands showing like that I wasn't going to accost her in any way. I kept a distance of like 15 feet. I mean, it was the most non-threatening, I guess, because of the fact I raised my voice a little. Like, I don't know. Anyways, I think she just had it in her to, like, she wanted to punk me and pull a gun on whoever she could have. So that didn't really sit right with me. And I'm like thinking in my head, I want to go back there and fucking pepper spray her or do something. I'm like stewing about it. But then also I'm like, I want to know her. Like, something's very intriguing about this girl. Back. And then like, I don't know, a month goes by. I don't see her again. I'm like, oh, fuck, the one that got away. And I'm at this gas station, and there's this little white girl who is like screaming at cars. Like, she's clearly in like a manic episode or something. She's got a shopping cart. and she's yelling at car, and I'm like, I take pity on her, and I'm like, hey, you know, why don't you smoke some of this and calm down? She gets in my car, and we start talking, we get to hanging out, and then I'm driving, and then she's like starts yelling at cars again. Like she's like a little white girl, but she's talking with like a very black afflection, you know, in the way she speaks, like ghetto. And we're out in this really dangerous neighborhood, and she's fucking yelling at people. And I'm like, what are you trying to get shot? And she sees this guy, and she goes, yo, motherfucker, you got a problem? And I realized the way she said it, it was the same girl that pulled the gun on me.
Wow.
So I'm like, that was you. And she's like, it turns out it was. And then I'm like, you punked me, you pulled a gun on me. And like, I hate you, but I love you. And it was this really weird dynamic between her and I. And I'm down later, like a couple days later, we're hanging out, getting high. She's going from being really friendly and calling me daddy to like wanting to kill me and like yell at me and like throw shit at me. And it was like this back and forth dance between that. And I'm down in like Ballard doing a fentanyl deal at like 3 o'clock in the morning with this like hostile fucking skinhead scary dude in this homeless encampment. I'm in the middle of this deal. It's going really well. And the girl's in my car, and she starts fucking screaming at me and bringing all this heat and like, I'm going to call the cops. Fuck you. Like just completely unprovoked insanity. And so, we had plans up until this point to like, she was going to take the journey down with me to LA. And I'm like, I got a girl to come with me. I got a co-pilot. Awesome. She starts yelling, and I realized, oh my God, this is a wrap. And so I just kicked her out of my car, and I left her at this hostile, homeless, like zombie fucking drug encampment. And I drove off, and I never saw her again. And I wonder, and at the same time, it was like I got revenge on her because she pulled the gun, but I also like, I don't know, I feel like it's the one that got away.
Yeah, and it happens. It happens. But yeah, that's your story.
Yeah.
We're gonna leave with the bang story, and hope you guys enjoyed it. And we got a lot going on in the future, so I'm gonna say goodbye to you guys, and I'm just really happy and grateful because it's gonna be awesome. This was just a little appetizer. We got the full course meal and the dessert coming. So I'm gonna head out. This is Reza.
Yeah, Patrick, and remember, it's return to sender, so it'll be another one in a week. We'll keep it coming.
Okay.
The revolution begins now.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, good job, buddy.
Good work.
How long did we go for, do you know?
I think we went longer than you.
42 minutes.